Hello, highway this week comes from Alderney, which, as inhabitants claim, is the only true Channel island because it juts out of the English Channel with France just 8 miles away to the east. It's quite an exciting way to arrive in this small trilander, which lands at what appears to be just a short section of a country lane. But despite its size, the airport has quite a unique place in local history. It was the first to be built in the Channel Islands. That was in 1935. And it provides the only all-year-round passenger link with the other islands, England and France. Alderney people are very aware of their air and sea links with the rest of the world. This is a place of homecoming, the theme of our programme. Apart from the young, the island is full of people who have travelled. Some moved out to find work, others to look for adventure. But for most, their leaving the island was a heartbreaking and terrifying experience. They spent 5 years in exile, a time which must have tested their faith.
As I wander out under the sky, how Jesus the Saviour did come for to die for poor ordinary people like you and I wonder as I wander out under the sky. Was in a cow stall with wise men and farmers and shepherds and all, but high from God's heaven a star's light did fall, and the promise of ages it then did recall. Jesus had wanted for anything, a star in the sky or a bird on the wing, or all of God's angels in heaven for to sing, he surely could have it, for he was the King. As I wander out under the sky, how Jesus the Saviour did come for to die for poor ordinary people like you and I wonder as I wander out under the sky.
The position of the island has been the greatest influence in the way of life here. For hundreds of years, military minds have exploited the strategic advantage of the island, possibly from Roman times, but certainly since the 16th century. Fortifications almost surround the island, but it's the more modern coastal defences which give a clue to the most traumatic event in Alderney's history, the evacuation in 1940 of the entire population as the threat of German occupation came closer. One of the islanders who was forced to leave her home is Ruth Herreville. Mrs. Herreville, can you tell us something about what happened in the evacuation?
We were told that if the boats came, the church bells would ring, and that would be the only intimation we had. We should then get down to the harbour as quickly as we could, and we were all to go home and pack a little bag, which we did, and I was quite determined, quite sure that it would never happen, you know.
Right.
But I packed a bag and left it on the side, and first thing in the morning the bells rang. And of course we at the time had a farm, so leapt out of bed and had to go off and see about animals and all kinds of things and let them loose. And we went down to the boat and we were taken across. It took us all day on a coal boat. We were on one of the last. There were 5 or 6, 7 perhaps boats came. And we were taken to Plymouth?
Went to the mainland.
Weymouth.
Yeah,
Weymouth
yeah.
we landed at. And from there, of course, we were all sent off to different directions.
Then when did you come back?
We came back in December 45.
How did it feel after being away for such a long
Oh,
time?
it was marvellous.
Was it?
It was marvellous, although when one got here it was a terrible sight. It was a shock, to say the least. But to know you were back, that was all that really mattered, you know.
How long did it take to get back to normal, or reasonable normality?
Well, three years. We were, I think they were still working on the communal farm then. They had a communal farm and everybody had to work, and quite rightly. And we all had to go at getting our houses right. But I remember saying at the time, it'll be 10 years before Alderney's back to normal, and I wasn't far wrong, actually. It really was.
Now, they tell me that even the church bells were evacuated during the war.
Yes, the Germans took them down, you see, because they wanted the top for an observation post and a machine gun post, actually, up the top there. And they could see practically all around the island there. And when we came back, there were no bells. Well, there was one bell here in the churchyard and one down at Bray, I believe, but the others had all been sent over to Cherbourg, and they were in a field in Cherbourg with a great many others, and they were going to send them back to be melted down, you see,
Were they?
to kill us all with.
So what happened? Somebody found them,
Somebody found them, and they recognised them.
and they're as good as new, aren't they?
They're better than, even better than they were before. They've always been very good sounding bells, but they're beautiful bells now.
Oh,
They really, we're very proud of our bells and our bell ringers.
Evidence of the past is all around us in Alderney. Colin, you're a military historian, aren't you? Now, can you tell us whether somebody fought on the island?
Well, historically, the island has always been very strategically important. I mean, we're standing here in Longy Bay, which has the site of a Roman fort of the Saxon shore at the nunnery. On the hill behind us is Essex Castle, which is an Elizabethan fortification originally. But the real importance of the island starts in Napoleonic times, and then the mid-19th century when the Victorian fortifications were built to defend the harbour.
What happened during the war?
During the last war, the Germans occupied this island in common with the other Channel Islands, and they turned Alderney into a strong point. It was an important base for coastal artillery, for protecting their coastal shipping, and as a base for part of the Atlantic War.
So they brought slave workers in to do the job, did they?
The organisation Todt came here in 1942 and built 4 labour camps for forced labourers, and for one part of that period, one of those camps was occupied by an SS construction battalion.
What's the Todt organisation?
The Todt organisation was a German management group, if you like. They were experts in bringing labour to all the sites on the Atlantic Wall, that is the continental coast in particular, to build these fortifications. They originated with the construction of the German Autobahn system in the early 1930s.
What's happened to them today? What are they used for?
Well, the forts today are mostly privately owned. Some are still retained by the states. Fort Clonk has been very faithfully restored by the Landmark Trust, and you can spend a holiday there. The other smaller forts are privately owned and are turned into private residences. The larger ones, unfortunately, still retained by the states, are very derelict.
But some of them are no longer grim.
Some of them are no longer grim, no. For instance, Raz Island behind us is now a little restaurant. You can go across there at low tide and have a meal.
Thanks very much indeed, Colin.
Right.
Not far from here, there's something you won't find on any other Channel Island. Listen to this. Lovely nostalgic sound, that, isn't it? Alderney has the only railway left in the Channel Islands. The Alderney Railway Society is run by a group of rail enthusiasts, and this is their pride and joy, the J.T. Daly. It's an 040 saddle tank locomotive. The sight of J.T. Daly steaming along delights all islanders, especially the children. We're about to take a trip with the choir of Sedan School as they sing, I Go My Merry Way. The children of Sedan School on their merry way. Steam engines produce one nostalgic sound in Alderney. Here's another.
These are Andre de Quino's figures, and he seems to me to have the gift of getting movement into them. That's Botham hitting that great six of his at Headingley, and that's the authentic stroke and beautiful swing of the body. Dennis Lilly that he hit for that six seems to me to be as hostile as there as we know he always was in real life. And Jim Later, the old master, my old friend.
Even if you're not a cricket fan, you'll recognise the voice. Yes, it's John Arlott, who's made his home here in Alderney. How did you happen to come to Alderney in the first place?
A man named Bill Taylor said to me when I went round to collect one of my sons from one of his sons' birthday parties, where are you going for your summer holiday? I said, well, I thought of going to Barcelona, or just south of it. Didn't call it the Costa Brava then, I don't think. He said, have you ever been to Alderney? I said, I don't fancy the idea of the Channel Islands. And I, damn it, he said, it's not the Channel Islands, it's Alderney. And I came, I liked it, and this was over 30 years ago, and it's charmed me ever since.
Is it home to you now? Of course, you
It is home now, yes, and I'm very happy with it.
What do you like about it?
Well, first of all, there are fewer boars here per head of the population than anywhere else, and that's a great and a prodigious relief. but above all, the people have got a sense of humour. It really is a friendly, easy place. No crime, unless you call drinking a crime. But no, it's such a friendly, humorous place, and that goes for everybody. They just make jokes.
What kind of jokes?
Well, for instance, you know that strong point hanging over the edge of the quarry down there?
Yeah.
Well, the islanders took one look at it and decided, a German strong point, and decided to call it the Odeon.
What's so different about Alderney from the other Channel Islands?
It's not really a Channel Island in the way that Jersey and Guernsey are, because in the last century, you see, probably 80% of the population over some 17 or 18 years were quarry workers or fort builders, because they built up 14 forts around this island, or soldiers or sailors, so that many people married into soldier or sailor or quarry worker families. So they're more English than the other two Channel Islands. They're not so pure Channel Islands as the others are.
You were such a popular figure, then you retired. Do you miss the cricket?
I missed the cricket, and of course I could have cut my throat when I missed that great series of '81 that Ian Botham won, and I never saw a ball bowled except on television, and I couldn't keep away from it. But no, I don't. I write, and I'm very, very happy. I'm an old man. I'm very content, really.
So, you're completely at home here in Alderney?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Don't want to go to the mainland, and very rarely do, except 2 routine visits a year.
Thanks very much for talking to us, John.
Pleasure.
John's writing covers many subjects, including hymns. This is one of them, God's Farm, sung by St Anne's Church Choir. The John Arlott hymn, God's Farm. And we're about to meet one of God's shepherds. Father Henry Bradley has spent over 50 years in the priesthood, and his Golden Jubilee celebrations were attended by islanders of all denominations. Father Bradley, you've been over 50 years in the priesthood, haven't you?
54, yes.
It's a long time.
Well, it seems short for me because it's been very happy. And so,
But you must have had to uproot yourself many times in that period.
yes. First of all, I had to move around to go to France to finish my studies,
Yeah.
and to Spain for my novitiate, as we call it, the
Yeah.
year's training. Then I volunteered for China after the priesthood, and fell ill and was sent to South America for my health.
South America?
The Argentine.
Yes. That must have been interesting down there.
It was, yes. The people are very good. They're mixed races, of course.
Yeah.
Italian, Spanish, and all the other, our own races.
Yeah. And then you eventually came here.
Then I came here to take over from a priest who was ill for a fortnight. And this is my 13th year here.
13 years? You came for 2 weeks and stayed 13 years? It's a long time, isn't it?
It is.
Now, you've been in all these different places. What do you think is important when you go to a new place, to a new country?
To adapt to the people of the country or the place, and not expect them to adapt to us.
So it means going more than halfway to meet them.
First of all, try to communicate with the language, and then once you got through, to try to adapt to their ways, their way of thinking, and to try to understand them.
How do they accept strangers here in Alderney?
Very well. If the stranger will adapt to the island and the islanders, well, no problem. If they want to impose their own ways, well, they make difficulties for themselves.
It's not going to work. We're back to where we started. You've got to adapt. That's
We have to adapt.
very
Yeah.
important. Well, thanks very much for talking to us.
Thanks very much for having me.
It's not only humans who have made their home here. Migrating birds use Alderney and the other Channel Islands as stepping stones on their journeys north and south. I'm going to make a little journey myself now, with a couple of fellas who know the waters around here better than I know my back garden. Jack Quinane and Francis Herrivel. We start with you first, Francis. Now, you take guided tours around the island, especially to see the bird life. Tell us something about it.
Well, we've got quite a good selection of seabirds and gannets, kittiwakes, guillemots, fulmars, but most graceful, I think, is the gannet itself, which really didn't start coming till about 1947 after the war.
Is that right?
And to see them just gliding around, virtually wind power, it's very nice to see. It's really lovely. Kittiwakes are another very dainty little bird, just hovering on the wind and picking food off the sea. It's really lovely to watch this. You know,
Cormorants here, aren't they?
Very lucky.
Yeah.
Cormorants, an awful lot of them. When they have bred, you see them forming big creches of 100, 200, 250, and big creches with a few adults with them, until they've learnt the facts of life, I should think, among the sea world, and how to fend for themselves, and then they start dispersing. But we're lucky in Alderney to see all the life that we do in the bird life.
Because during the evacuation, I suppose a lot of damage was to be done to the wildlife around here.
Well, my parents did say that when they came back, it took at least 2 years before they heard the sound of a bird again.
Is that right?
Because it was completely desolate. So it must have had some effect with the ecology of the food line. It was strange to hear them say that, but they said that was, and a lot of the old people said that was a noticeable thing, a long time before they heard the sound of a bird again.
Could you say, too, that nature has a way of healing scars?
Oh, it does, yes. I think it's taken 40 years to heal the scars, but mankind keeps making more scars, which nature has to keep re-healing all the time. I've always found that, given time, the more you try to, you can help it, but left to its own devices, it will overtake and overcome a lot of the scars that, mankind makes.
You're also a church warden at St Anne's.
Yes, I'm deputy church warden and sidesman. Been a few years at that now.
Does it mean a lot to you?
Oh, very much so. I like church music, hymn music, and it's sustained me in a number of occasions where I've wanted to get away from the rat race and pick up a bit of peace and quiet, sort of collect myself again, because everything has speeded up in the last few years. Well, last 20 years, things have speeded up an awful lot. Attitudes and everything else have changed, society's changed, so it's nice to go into church sometimes and contemplate, and I think it does bring home to everything that's going around. It's not exactly final. It'll carry on coming in years to come. It'll change as we change ourselves as we get older. A lot of the disciplines have gone, which in many cases they have gone. There's still some of the old families that keep a modicum of discipline, which I think is very vital to a lot of the youngsters, which can then help them, well, through the hard times that they come across, which they do come across from time to time, even in their young age. And hopefully, those that's brought into the church, they get the comfort of the church, of the Bible, and of the people that are there too, the senior people of the church, that sort of help them to sort of pace their lives, instead of trying to rush forward as we often do when we're young. We try to run before we can walk. Yes, it has influenced me an awful lot, I think, in the last 20 years.
Thanks very much, Francis.
Thank you very much, Sir Harry.
Jack, you're a pilot, a fisherman, and an amateur poet. What has Alderney mean to you?
Oh, it means a great deal to me, Sir Harry. It means everything, really. I mean, I see it in all the sea, in all its moods, and the sun and everything. I think that's what brings out the poet in me, because I have a diary this year that I have kept up, and I've made a poem for each day of the year.
And you've got a poem you're going to read for us, haven't you?
Seldom used is east by north, by today's seamen as they sail forth. Much too complicated, they do say, so we use degrees to plot our way. 0 to 1 to 360, quite simple then as they will show. Just say the number you require, we forget them not, as our eyes do tire. But then there are a few old salts who use the quarters as we're taught. Sounds quite musical when the course is steady right on east by north. Now you have the house, you see. When our house was new and trim, must have a name as you move in, said friends and neighbours one and all. Paint it there on the new front wall. The name Hannane was right in line, called after a bay whose beauty's fine. The family thought it would be great, and for that name they could not wait. Somehow to me Hannane was not just right, so I thought and thought through day and night, but could not find in my old brain something to replace that name, Hannane. So to cut the story short, one day when doing what I ought, steering sunrise o'er the tide, the calm sea rushing by our sides, Harry busy with his bands, tying lobsters by their hands, just thinking naught of sea or song, as we were being driven along. Suddenly it came from where, straight and perfect, low and clear, a little voice did whisper soft, just call your house, friend, east by north.
Thank you very much, Jack.
Well, that's east by north.
And thank you, Francis.
Thank you very much, Harry.
Nice to talk to you both.
And nice to talk to you, Sir Harry, yes, and
Great welcome to the island.
yes.
The sea in all its moods, and it can be very moody in these parts, is important to Francis and Jack. It's nice to meet two men who can look back on their lives with such great contentment.
When you look back on your life, what will you see? Will you see the kind of man you want to be? Will you know deep in your heart, in all you tried, you worked with dignity, with passion and with pride? When you look back on your life, what will you say to companions who were with you on the way? Will you hold your head up high before the rest, because you know you've done your best? Upon the voyage through life, some seas are rough. There will be times your best will not seem quite enough. Then you must ride the storm, just hanging on. And when the calm has come again, you'll still go on. When you look back on your life, what will you find that has given you the greatest peace of mind? When all is said and done, let it not be what you've won, my son, but that you've lived your life with
Highway is now in its 4th season. In all that time, I've met lots of wonderful people and been to many interesting places. But it's always nice to get home after each journey, which gives me a little insight into how much the people of Alderney appreciate home and homecoming. Next week, Highway takes the road again. North this time, to Loch Lomond. I'll see you there.